Welcome to the Coding Loft. In today's video, you will learn how to compile a TypeScript project into a JavaScript file using Webpack, so you can then use it inside of your web project. So in our case, our JavaScript adds a heading that says this is Webpack in TypeScript, so everything has compiled correctly. Let's get started. Let's start by making a new directory called TypeScript Webpack. Let's go inside of this TypeScript Webpack folder and open it in VS Code. Before we start with the TypeScript and Webpack configuration, let's start with a simple project that we want to compile. So we have a source folder, and in here we have a file called index.typescript, and again another file called addHeading.typescript. So here we want to export a function called addHeading. It's an arrow function. And what does this do? Well, it creates a heading element. So we say document.createElement, and then we create an h1. Then we want to add a class name. So we say document.classlist.add main heading, because in a later video we want to show you how to use styles in your Webpack project so they are also compiled and added to your file. Then we can add a text. We say heading.inner text equals this is Webpack and TypeScript. And lastly, we want to append it to our body. So we say insert adjacent element, and after the body begins, we then want to add our heading. Simple as that. Now inside of index.ts, we import it. So we import addHeading from the corresponding file. And then as soon as this compiled JavaScript will run, we want to call the addHeading function. So it adds the heading to the body. Now let's open the terminal, and we want to initialize our NPM project, and then we want to install the necessary packages. So this is npm install Webpack. We want to install the Webpack CLI as well as TypeScript loader. And now we need to add two configuration files. First, a TypeScript configuration file and the Webpack configuration file. Let's start with the TypeScript file. So both will be in our root folder. So in the root folder, I add TSConfig.json. And here we specify some TypeScript configuration options. So we want to say compiler options. And here we can give different options, as the name says. So we have the out directory. This will be in a folder called dist. We want to set strict to true to enable the stricter type checking. Then for the module, we say common.js, which is the Node.js module type. The target will be ES5. So that means that older browsers also can understand our compiled JavaScript, even though most browsers nowadays understand ES6 and beyond. And then we say ES module interrupt to true, so we can also understand other modules. So not just the common.js module. Then we want to say include. What kind of files do we want to include in our compilation? So here we can specify either files or folders. In our case, we say we want all the files in our source folder and all of the directories and all of the files in there. And then we also want to exclude certain files, and this will be our node modules. So we don't want to compile any of those. That's our TypeScript configuration. So we say we want a separate folder called dist where we want to output our files. We want a common.js module type, but we also want to allow different modules. We look for the files inside of source and all of the files within subdirectories, and want to exclude the node modules folder. Now let's add our Webpack configuration. For this we need a file called webpack.config.js, and in here let's import the path package from node. So the way that this configuration works, we have a module.exports object, and here we can specify different configuration options. So the name's actually quite self-explanatory. So first, let's say the entry option. We want to look for an entry file. So inside of the current directory, there's a source directory, and here there should be a file called index.ts. That's our entry file, and that's the file that we want to compile. So all of the packages that we import into index.ts, such as addHeading, all of this is handled by Webpack. Then we want to specify the output property. So in here we can say what kind of file name we want to give. So it's common for Webpack to say bundle.js, but you can use another file name as well. And we can specify a path. So here we say path.resolve, so the current directory. And then we look for a directory called dist. So this creates a file bundle.js inside of a dist folder inside of our current directory. And then under module, we have a rules property where we can specify an array of rules. So for us right now, the one that is important, we want to see if there's a TypeScript file. So we test for TypeScript files with a regular expression, and we say, look for any files that end with .ts. The $sign means it's at the end of a line. And if that's the case, we want to use the TS loader that we installed earlier. And again, here we also want to exclude the node modules. And then we can specify also a resolve property. And in here, we can say what kind of extensions we want to have resolved. So in our case, this will be TypeScript and JavaScript. So again, we look for an index.ts file inside our source folder. We bundle everything into bundle.js in our dist folder. We look for TypeScript files and then we want to apply the TS loader package and we want to resolve TypeScript and JavaScript extensions. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to create a script inside of package.json called build. And this is where we want to say that Webpack should now create a production build. So we say Webpack -- mode is production. And that's it. Now you can run npm run build. And this should give us a build file. Everything worked. So you can see we have a dist folder and in here we have our bundle.js. So this is the bundled JavaScript file in ES5 format. So you can see here's our add heading function. And now to see that this works, let's create an index.html file, just a simple boilerplate. And in the body we add a script tag. And for the source we say inside of this, there's a file called bundled.js, and that's what we want to run. So let's start our live server. And you can see we have this is Webpack and TypeScript added to our body. So this comes from the compiled JavaScript. Everything works.